Hello everyone, Merry Christmas. My name is Lore and I am so glad that you are here with us to worship together. This year has been really difficult for many of us, and we know that we are staying home for Christmas. So we wanted to do a fun worship experience that you can enjoy from home. Our hope is that at the end of our time together, you are filled with hope for this Christmas. So gather your family, get comfortable. We're gonna sing some songs together, and let's have a Merry Christmas. Hola, ¿qué tal? Mi nombre es Lore y estoy muy contenta de poder saludarte y que estés con nosotros durante esta transmisión para cantar juntos. Sabemos que este ha sido un año difícil y que muchos de nosotros estaremos celebrando Navidad desde casa, así que quisimos tener una experiencia divertida de adoración que puedas disfrutar desde tu hogar. Nuestro deseo es que al final de esta transmisión puedas sentirte lleno de esperanza para esta Navidad. Así que junta a tu familia, ponte cómodo, vamos a cantar unas canciones juntos y tengamos una feliz Navidad.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the dark of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. Thou art giving us to the joy divine.
Venid, fieles todos, a Belén marchemos de gozo, triunfantes y llenos de amor. Y al Rey de los cielos, humilde veremos, venid y adoremos, venid y adoremos, venid y adoremos a Cristo el Señor. Venid fieles todos, vengan y adoremos, cantar aleluya, solo Él es digno. Venid fieles todos, vengan y adoremos, cantar aleluya, solo Él es digno. En pobre pesebre yace reclinado, al hombre ofreciendo eterna salvación. El Santo Mesías, el Verbo humanado, venid y adoremos, venid y adoremos, venid y adoremos a Cristo el Señor. Go. Venid fieles todos, vengan y adoremos, cantar aleluya, solo Él es digno. Come on. Venid fieles todos, vengan y adoremos, yeah, yeah. Cantar aleluya, solo Él es digno. Vamos. Venid fieles todos, vengan y adoremos, cantar aleluya, solo Él es digno, pues solo Él es digno, solo Él es digno, solo Él es digno, Cristo el Señor.
Hey, Merry Christmas, everyone, to all of you who are in this setting, sharing this Christmas Eve experience, and everyone who is watching online, whether you're watching it on Christmas Day or on Christmas Eve or whenever you're watching it. As you sit at home, a bunch of us, as you can tell, are sitting in our new beautiful atrium here at Westbrook, our new home at Westbrook. And our hope through this Christmas at home experience is that you will find a sense of peace. You will experience an awareness of joyful celebration. You will experience the lavish love of Christ in incredible ways. Our hope is that this time at home, this season, will be a moment of refreshment for you, even though a lot of people have spent a lot of time at home this year. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've repeated a couple words in that introduction. There's a couple words that I've said several times that really kind of highlight this year. One of them is the word home. And we've been talking a lot about home, and we've spent a lot of time at home, and that really has highlighted the year. But the other word that I pray will be a real special highlight as we move into 2021 is the word hope. You know, home really has been an important word this year. We've heard it over and over again. You know, if you feel a little under the weather, stay at home, right? Wear a mask and shelter at home. Do your best to constantly wash your hands and stay 6 feet apart from one another. And unless you have to leave, stay home. It's been a bit relentless, hasn't it? I mean, that's all we've talked so much about. But being home for the holidays, even when we've spent a good portion of our time at home this year, it's kind of sort of the hallmark of the holidays, isn't it? And often being home for Christmas and being home for the holidays, it kind of like outmaneuvers all the other important things in our life. I love that famous story from a century ago, December the 17th, 1903. After 4 attempts, the Wright brothers flew their flying machine for the very first time. And when it all took place, Wilbur, one of the brothers, then rushed to the local telegraph office. He sent the following message to his sister. He typed this in: "We have flown for 12 seconds. We'll be home for Christmas." Upon receiving the telegram, his sister Catherine went to the newspaper office and she told the newspaper and told them the news. And 2 days later, on page 6, the headlines read, "Wright brothers home for Christmas." Amazingly, being home for Christmas trumped their flight feet. Sure, they were the first ones to fly an airplane, but it was even more important that they were coming home for the holidays. Of course, there's Christmas songs. They abound for the holidays, right? I'll be home for Christmas. You've heard that before. Written during World War II, captures the longing of soldiers who were serving overseas. They wanted to be home, and even if they couldn't be there personally, they were there in their hearts. A classic by Darlene Love and then recorded by Mariah Carey says, "Baby, please come home." A home for Christmas it's like classic holiday. I mean, it warms our heart. It brings joyful anticipation for most. When I was a little boy, that's what I remembered the most about Christmas. I remembered the most about the holidays was everybody coming home for Christmas. And my folks and my home was the place where everybody landed. My Aunt Sue and Uncle Carl and my cousin Karen would come in from Louisville, and my Aunt Mary and Uncle Harry and Lenny would come in from Chicago, and Uncle Bob and Aunt Biddy from Washington, D.C. with their son Jim, and my cousin Gary and Janice and all the kids would arrive from Tuscola. Mass chaos would ensue for a couple of days, and I don't know, I felt like my mom made 20 pounds of mashed potatoes and the deviled eggs. Oh my goodness, how I loved the deviled eggs. But home for the holidays, man, what good memories, most of them incredibly good. And traditions from my home when I was growing up have then been passed down through the ages, and they continue now as Christy and I started our home. And now when Christy's family all pile into our house, when that day arrives, a lot of those traditions continue. An author named Barbara Brown Taylor, though, catches the flavor of our tendency to romanticize Christmas. She says this. She says, every Christmas Eve functions like a kind of a time machine. taking us back to every other Christmas Eve we've ever spent on this earth. And for some, it's the smell of pine, it's the taste of roast turkey, it's mom and dad sitting around in their bathrobes sipping coffee while all the kids chase the new puppy around the avalanche of wrapping paper. For others, this night is a reminder of the way life should have been, but never was. Though we have looked through the lives of other people's windows at such scenes of domestic bliss, but never as an insider. John Ortberg suggests that there's the home we long for, and there's the home that we have, and there's always a gap in between. I remember when I was at home and with my family, we would always read the Christmas story before we could open up presents. And I suppose I was a little bit older before it hit me, but not everybody was at home. Mary and Joseph were away from their home that first Christmas, weren't they? In Matthew chapter 1 and verse 20, Joseph is told to take Mary home as his wife, but that didn't last long because they had to bounce down to Massimo. Remember what town? Remember what town they had to go to? Remember what town Jesus was born in? You remember Bethlehem. You remember Bethlehem, right? What do these famous verses say? Well, they say, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his own town to register. Rayleigh, would you read the rest of that for me? Can you read it?
Ready, Riley? Yes. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them.
So Mary and Joseph weren't really home for that special occasion. The shepherds weren't home because of their nature of their work. They were far from home. The wise men had wandered from home so they could worship the King Jesus. The family of Jesus had to set up their home in Bethlehem for a while, and then they fled to Egypt, and then they went back to Judea. Finally, they ended up later in Nazareth. Later, Jesus made his home in Capernaum, but that was his ministry base, right? But the Bible says that Jesus had no place to lay his head. And Jesus was literally far from home because he came from heaven, right? There's a longing for each of us to have this home in us, right? In fact, the Bible talks a lot about this. Did you know that the Bible mentions the word home 186 times? Yeah, there's something about home for Christmas. But it's true, the home that we long for and the home that we have, sometimes there's a gap in between them. And because of that, maybe the second key word that I mentioned when I first began this talk, the word hope, maybe that word is really, really, really key. You see, for most people, Christmas at home brings lots of special memories, but all that we've gone through this year, all the stuff that we've lost, all the changes that we've had to weather, all the adjustments that we've had to make, I don't know. But I guess what I want to share with you guys for just a couple of moments, and for all the people who are with us online, I just want to share some words of hope. Some words of hope in the midst of all this. A couple days ago, I received a Christmas card with the phrase, "The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight." Highlighted apart from the rest of "O Little Town of Bethlehem," which is one of my favorite Christmas carols, this single line struck me like never before, especially this year. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. That song, written in 1868 by a guy named Phillips Brooks, who was a pastor in Philadelphia after a trip to the Holy Land and seen the nighttime Bethlehem from the hills of Palestine. When he returned back to the States, he had the church organist, a guy named Lewis Redner, write the melody for the Sunday school choir, and they sang that song for the first time. It's been a beloved Christmas carol ever since. You know it. It says, "O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep the silent stars go by. Yet in the dark streets shineth the everlasting light." What does it say? "The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight." Hopes and fears are surely two things that are really common to all humanity, even if we're at home, right? The fears go by with alternating degrees of one or the other, maybe sometimes at the same time, both in all of us. When our faith is strongest, we're likely to hold more hope. When our faith is weakened, fear can take over, right? Now, naturally, we want the hope that isn't just "I hope so," but it's "I know so." Yet things come up. A crisis can bring a life-altering blow to rock our reliance upon God, and the fear can be exhaustingly paralyzing, and that's for those of us who have faith. When we're hoping for a miraculous healing for a relative with a heartbreaking prognosis, right, we're simultaneously working to overcome fear with what's next and have hope that it's going to be okay. We're hopeful for a better situation at work while anxious that it might never come. Hopes and fears. We're praying for a more stable world, but current events kind of make us question that and question God. Family members who are hurting each other, and financial struggles, a death of a beloved person, something that's lost at home, and addiction, our own sin. Goodness, any number of things can bring those traumatic events, and we have that, and it can turn our hopes into fears, our feelings of fears. Listen, it can be devil's playground sometimes, leaving us vulnerable to despair. But the one thing I want you to realize that God reminds us that He can give us a peace, even in the midst of that, a peace that the world can't provide. I love that scripture that the Apostle Paul uses to encourage us. He says this, "Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace, believing that you may abound in hope." I love that. The birth of Jesus Christ brought all the hopes and fears of all of humanity together in His plan for salvation. And so this Christmas, as we can ask Him to give us the peace that we need and ask Him to help us overcome our fears with His hope. Not the hope of "I hope so," but the hope of "I know so." I don't know if you guys know this about me or not, but one of my growing hobbies and one of my growing pastimes is to study paintings of artists from our history. And a few weeks ago, I took some time to study the famous painting from the Dutch artist Rembrandt called "The Adoration of the Shepherds." Painted in 1646, it depicts his vision of what it would have been like for the shepherds to see the baby Jesus for the first time. And I really fell in love with this painting. In fact, I ordered a print to have, and I want you to check this out if you guys can kind of see this. It's really kind of cool. This painting is dark because it's a night scene, and it appears inside a barn, right? And the dark tones force the viewer to study the images very, very, very carefully. In the center, of course, is the babe in the feeding trough. Mary is by his side. Joseph is not too far away. The shepherds are gathered around. They're intently watching all of this as well. And if you study it carefully, you can see the sheep, right? The shepherds are there because the angels have announced His birth, this angelic choir. The sheep are there because they can't leave the sheep outside, so they brought them into the barn with them. To the right, there is a rickety ladder kind of leaning through the shadows of a crossbeam. Next to the ladder is a rooster. It's kind of hard to see, but it's all there. And when you study this painting, soon it hits you that the ladder and the crossbeam, they make the dim outline of a cross. And the rooster, it's a symbol of betrayal in the distant future. And yet in this joyous moment, the cross looms over the baby Jesus. But the most significant feature is the light. Unlike other Renaissance artists, Rembrandt didn't just paint Jesus as an angel with the halo. No, he's a very normal baby, a very human baby. And everything in the painting is dark except for the baby in the manger. Can you see that? And the light isn't shining on the baby. The light is shining from the baby. Isn't that cool? This was Rembrandt's way of saying that all hope and all light shines from the manger, lighting up the darkest world. All this year, as we've spent time at home, surely there have been times that you've wondered, is there any hope? Is there any hope? And the answer to that question is yes. Yes. Hope invaded the world 2,000 years ago in a little town called Bethlehem. And friends, if we want hope to invade our lives, we must do what those shepherds did so long ago. We must come to Bethlehem and welcome the newborn King. Hope is available only to those who humble themselves and they allow Jesus to come into their lives as they bow down to Him in faith. My hope for you and for everybody online is that you will celebrate this incredible day at home and you will find a sense of peace. You will find a sense of hope. You will find a sense of joyful celebration. And you will know more than ever the lavish love of Jesus. And it can come into your todays, it can come into your tomorrows, and it can come into every aspect of your life. Merry Christmas.
Need to know that I'm not alone. Even if the earth gives way, I got you by my side. You and me, we're gonna make it through this together. I wouldn't have it any other way. Days are filled with uncertainty. Today I'm doing alright, and I have my moments with anxiety, when all my hope seems lost. Need to know that I'm not alone. Even if the earth gives way, I got you by my side. You and me, we're gonna make it through this together. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sure, when things will make sense again, but I'm not counting the days. other